What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Daniel Teaches Experience. My friends, we're going to be really all over the board with this one. Maybe some stuff about dating and some stuff about TV shows, so stick along, sit back, relax, and enjoy. By the way, can we just talk about how amazing it is that you could be going on a run, doing your homework, washing the dishes, eating food, or just sitting down and listening to this, and like the beauty of podcasts in that sense, man. Like, especially if you've got, on Spotify or Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I mean, you don't have to have like the screen on, you know what I mean? Like on YouTube, like you can have the screen off, have it in your pocket, you're driving on your way to work, you are cleaning up your room, and it's still playing in the background, which is absolutely insane. Like that is one thing that podcasts and audiobooks will forever have over books, right? You can't read a book while driving, or you shouldn't anyway. So thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate your support. I hope you enjoy. Let's get into this bad boy. So folks, one of my favorite things to do is I like to look at comments. Let me backtrack. I stopped looking at comments a long time ago because it's a hassle, right? Every once in a while, yo, Daniel, you're amazing. That's not good because it'll go to your head. Daniel, you absolutely suck. It's like, well, that's not good because if you want to, you could just only read negative things, right? So, not like that necessarily. But what I mean by that is I've been looking at the trending videos on YouTube, and every once in a while I like to look at the trending tweets, videos, posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, kind of to see what the general narrative is with regards to certain issues or certain concepts. And one thing that I've seen a lot for the last couple of years, but I really wanted to speak about today, was this idea of you don't need a man. I guess this is more emphasized for women, but for everybody. Like, hey, you don't need a person. But this is especially heard in a woman's life. Hey, you don't need a man. I don't need a man with me. I don't need a boyfriend. I'm fine on my own. If you've ever said that, or if you've heard of anyone ever saying that, let me poke at that for a little bit. Let me ruffle some feathers. First and foremost, when you say, I don't need a man, what does that mean? What are you referring to exactly? Because in the podcast game, we want to be really specific. We want to make sure that we're on the same page with the terminology that we use. So when you say I don't need a man, are you referring to I don't need a man to necessarily provide for me, to have to buy my apartment, to be able to pay for my dinner because I can't pay for my own dinner, to climb up the corporate ladder, and to reach my ideal career? Because if that's the case and you're saying, hey, I don't need a partner, I don't need a man, I don't need a woman, I don't need a non-binary, whatever, I get that. And this is completely my own opinion, and I would say I would agree with you. You don't need another like romantic partner to constantly support you to get your career. Now, it would help. I'm sure it would help. It wouldn't harm, depending on who the person is. But if you're talking about from a psychological perspective, and this goes back to Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, right, which are very... what's the word? They're very well known now, right? Everyone knows, yeah, of course, come on, hierarchy of needs, right? We start off with our basic needs like food, water, then we get to safety, we want to make sure we have shelter, then we get to, let's say, love and belonging, we want to feel welcome, then we get to self-esteem, and we want to feel good about ourselves, right? So there's pyramids to things. And folks, I think that there is, and this is, again, me going off my own opinion because I haven't done too much in-depth research on this, I think everybody needs somebody, like romantically. I think as human beings, we're wired to be around people and to be social, to not just be on our own. And I think that there's very few people in life who can really be like that lone wolf, that Liam Neeson, that Denzel Washington in a cabin in the woods all by themselves and genuinely feel at peace with themselves. Now, I'm not saying, hey, everyone's going to be lonely if they're alone. I'm not saying that. But I do believe that people get something valuable from being around other people. Mind you, these are people who praise you. These are people who make you feel good about yourself, people who make you feel competent, people who will teach you things, people who will call you out if you're in the wrong, not people who will belittle you or abuse you or just really harm your well-being, right? So I'm not talking about that second one. Now, we all know that it's important to have family around us who love us and friends around us who love us and who care for our well-being. I was looking at what was I looking into? I believe it was connectedness and belonging. And they said, man, two things matter drastically. That someone cares about your well-being, like immensely cares about your well-being. And two, I forgot the second one. But I remember the first one really, really well. I was like, man, a sign of someone like truly loving you is that they care about your health, is that they will check in on you, is that when they ask, hey, how are you? It's not just, oh, I'm fine. And then, no, it's like, how are you doing? Like, how's life? Is the family okay? Is work okay? Like, they genuinely care about your well-being, both physically and psychologically. So that's highly important. Now, you have a certain sort of a social relationship with your friends and with your family. But folks, a romantic relationship is something else. You know, and I feel like everybody needs to have a romantic relationship. So if you say, you know, I don't need a man from a romantic perspective, I would debate that. I think every woman needs a man. And I think every man needs a woman. And to just throw sexual orientation out the window, I think every person needs a person in a romantic perspective, whether you're lesbian, gay, trans, non-binary, whatever that might be. I think the idea originally came from this thing of, you know, I can be independent and I can stand on my own 2 feet. And just because I'm not with someone, that doesn't mean I'm lonely or I'm sad or I'm a loser, which I love. But I think we also shouldn't look at wanting to be with someone as a weakness. Because I see that narrative a lot too. Like, oh, what? Like you can't be alone? Like you want to find a partner? You know, if a girl says, well, yeah, I really want to find a boyfriend. It's like, of course you do. You just want someone to take care of you. Now, it differs person to person, but largely if you pick that partner correctly, it's not going to harm you, right? You would hope that it would only help you, that it will only support you. And you might say, well, you know, Daniel, I don't need a partner to be happy. And you might be right. But I do believe, in my own opinion, that if you had a partner who was good for you, who was good for your well-being, who cared for you, that they would enhance your happiness. I always said that you need to make yourself happy, that you shouldn't depend on anyone else to make you happy. Right? That it comes internally, that it comes from within. Now, if you can get other people to amplify that happiness, so you make yourself happy, but then you surround yourself with a person who deeply cares about you, who you have things in common with, you share the same values and the same morals and ethics, and they're there for you and they support you, in my opinion, that can only enhance the happiness that you already have for yourself. Because you're truly happy for yourself, and they're truly happy for themselves. And then when you come together, you can kind of grow this beautiful bond between you two, and you can be there for each other, not just through the good, but through the bad. Because that's when it really matters. If you think about being a kid, you know, some of the times when you appreciated your parents or your family the most was when you were sick. Right? Think about being a child and you know, you're lying there and you have this cold or flu or whatever, and your mom brings you that chicken soup or someone's doing something for you. And you think to yourself, man, like, I'm really lucky to have this person. I really, really hope that no one gets in a position where they're sick or they're ill or they're in a really bad situation and they have no one around them. And they go, man, I really wish I had somebody here with me. I really hope. Unfortunately, it doesn't. That's what happens most of the time, right? People don't notice it when it's right in front of them. And it takes them a while, right? It's until someone's gone, then you start being like, oh, you know what, man, I should have really appreciated them when they were here, right? It's when the relationship breaks off, you're like, you know what, maybe I could have been kinder to this person. Maybe I could have shown more empathy. Maybe I could have shown more compassion. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I was watching a movie last night. I've seen The Upside. I don't know if you folks saw it. It was Kevin Hart and Paul Cranston or Bryan Cranston. But the gentleman, the main actor from Breaking Bad. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. You know, it was a very touching movie, and it makes you feel good. And it's basically about this actor by the name of Kevin Hart, and he plays this life auxiliary, meaning he helps, if Bryan Cranston, if that's his name, I apologize, sir. And he helps him, and in this movie, he's supposed to be a quadriplegic, meaning he had this terrible accident, and he can't move any of his limbs from the neck down, basically. So arms and legs are gone, and he has to help him out. And it was this beautiful depiction of an individual who was remarkably wealthy. I mean, he had this amazing like mansion of a home, and he could have like $80,000 art pieces, anything that you could imagine this man could have, right? A plethora of cars of different models and new, and they look brand new in his garage. But he was lonely. He was a lonely man, and it was one of those things that you also hear a lot. You hear people say, well, if I'm going to cry, I'd rather cry in my Ferrari. It's like, you say that now. You say that now, man, but it's a real tragedy when you have a lot of money and you're absolutely sad. And a lot of people can't comprehend that because a lot of people have money troubles, right? And they go, well, Daniel, you know, you tell me one thing, but we can barely pay these bills. You don't know how happy I'd get if I can pay these bills and if I can take my wife and kids out on a vacation. It would change my entire life. And it's like, you're right. You know, you're right. That does impact your happiness. Money can buy happiness up into a certain point. It definitely can, right? When your bills are paid and you have food on the table and you can go out on vacation, of course it can buy happiness, of course, to a certain extent. But folks, there's a real misery when you have all the money in the world, but nobody to spend it with. You can buy escorts and prostitutes and whatever you like, and I'm sure people will try to be your friend just to be around you and to be around the money. But finding someone who genuinely supports you and loves you and cares for you is very hard. And whenever you meet someone, now you got to think, well, do you love me for me, or do you love me because of what I have, right? And that's not just that character in the movie, but I guess anyone, right? Any athlete, any business owner, someone with a very large proportion of wealth. That always has to be a question in the back of your mind, right? Do you like me for me, or do you like me for the things that I have around me? And it's tough, folks. It's a very tough business. And you might say, well, Daniel, I'd rather be rich and alone than poor and with love and family around me. That'd be interesting. That's interesting. If you'd rather be rich and alone. I feel like people, obviously they take things for granted, and I think people take relationships for granted all the frickin' time. The amount of people I met, man, with just a single mom growing up, or a single dad, or no parents in the picture at all, right? And we have conversations and they talk about, or maybe they have no siblings, or maybe they have too many siblings, and they always talk about what they don't have. The one with too many siblings says, Daniel, I wish I had my own room, man. I wish I didn't have to share anything, I wish mom and dad were just easier on me. Like, I wish they just treated me how they treat the youngest, for example, as opposed to treating me differently. And then I hear people with no siblings saying, man, I wish I had a brother or sister. I wish I had someone to talk to. I wish I had someone to connect with, when me and mom and dad aren't seeing eye to eye. And it's quite, I don't know, it's almost like a blessing and a curse at the same time. But at the same time, would you want to live in a life that has only blessings and no curses? If that was the case, how could you recognize a blessing? Would a blessing still be a blessing if there was no such thing as a curse? Would it just be a thing? Or is it a blessing in the existence of a curse? Because when you have curses, it reminds you what the good is, right? Like how can you truly have good without having evil? And how can you have evil without having good? Because if you only had one, you don't really appreciate the other. You kind of need both so you can compare and contrast the two. That really went deep, man. How did I get from a woman not needing a man to that? But yeah, that's what happens here on the Daniel Teaches Experience. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, if you haven't followed us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, make sure to do so to hear more incredible content. Thank you. Man. Yeah, dude, that's some interesting stuff. That is some interesting stuff. Yeah, I think I can learn a lot from TV shows. I really do. I think that there's some TV shows out there that are really, really cool. I think that there's some that are more, I used to call them brain dead. I mean, it doesn't sound the nicest, but essentially they're not thought-provoking, right? They're these shows like, for example, like a Family Guy, like a Simpsons, that would just kind of, they just entertain you. They get your mind off homework or work or whatever, or problems with your wife, and they'd be good in that sense. But recently I've been listening to other psychologists and sociologists give their take on things like, Family Guy and Simpsons, and there's actually some really interesting lessons to get from it, man. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, if you look for a lesson, you can almost find it in anything. It just depends on how you look. And you're going, Daniel, like, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. Right? How can you possibly find a lesson in, let's say, something like Family Guy? Well, if you look at it with a critical eye, one of the main characters, Peter, you almost see him as like a man-child, and you see him as an individual who almost, like, he hasn't grown up yet, right? He still has the mentality of a child, and he does certain things which puts his family at risk. And he doesn't try to, right? He loves his family, and he wants to provide, and he wants to give to them. But it's almost like Lois is taking care of all of her children and Peter. Like, she's got like a bunch of kids, and she's husbandless. Right? So, I mean, there's a lot of little things. If you look precisely, there's a lot of little things you can look into. I finished watching a TV show known as Peaky Blinders about a year ago. It was a very good show. Lots of back and forth, lots of drama, lots of psychological issues too. There's a main gentleman by the name of Thomas Shelby. He's a very fascinating character. You see a lot of quotes by him on Instagram, which is weird. Like, there'll be quotes on Instagram, they'll be like, walk like the king, or walk like you don't care who the king is, and it'll be him like smoking a cigar or something, which is sweet and all, but if you actually watch the show, you don't want to be Thomas Shelby. You don't want to be Thomas Shelby. At first glance, yeah, he seems like a badass. He's unbelievably calm and cool. He's the guy who you could, point a gun to, and he'd sit there and he'd look at you. He seems stone cold. He's very stoic. He's very well-mannered. He's very strong and respectable. He's assertive. But on the other hand, he is deeply psychologically disturbed. Like, deeply. Like, we're talking PTSD, depression, suicidality, anxiety at some points, and that was very interesting to me, man. How you can see someone from the outside, you know, and especially like Instagram and some stuff too. Like you paint this character as like, oh, the ultimate character, but he's actually really, he needs help. Like you need professional help. The same thing they do with Leonardo DiCaprio's depiction of, what was his name? Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street. If you've seen the movie, right, there's quotes all over Instagram and other social media where they have his face and they're like, they say something like, I don't know, man. You know, they have some sort of motivational quote under it. I'm like, dude, this dude was a felon. This dude was a con man. He was a fraud. He stole so many people's money. If you actually watch the movie, again, at first glance, he's amazing, he's confident, he's charming, he's charismatic. Well, as you're watching the movie, you're like, yo, this dude has some deep problems. He has some deep family problems. He has some deep problems with himself. And how he sees himself and how he sees the world. He has got alcohol problems, he's got drug problems. You don't want to be that guy. I'm not saying you can't learn a thing or two from people, but overall, you know, you should be really careful about who you follow and how do you idolize them and how you put them on a pedestal. Another show I just finished watching was Vikings, a very brutal show. It was very exciting. It had lots of interesting character development. They had one character, his name was Ragnar Lothbrok. He was played by Travis Fimmel. And again, there's an actor who was very cool, very calm. He listens a lot. He only talks when it's necessary. And those are some really attractive traits. And just attractive as in like, wow, I love the power that he commands, right? The way that he looked at people with his eyes, the way that he uses body language to command respect. There were very, very interesting things. But on the other hand, you have someone, again, who's deeply disturbed. He's deeply disturbed and he felt anxious at one point because of the people and how they looked at him. At one point, he, not to spoil it, but he's had his run-ins with drugs. And again, suicidality was a thought at one point. Both Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders and Ragnar Lothbrok from Vikings at one point looked at someone who was quote unquote below them in social status, so let's say a bartender or a farmer, and they said, man, that guy's 100 times happier than I am. It's unbelievable. It's very, 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 very cool, man. The amount that you can learn from movies and TV shows, and really for the last 2-3 years, I haven't watched much. I really haven't watched much. If anything that this pandemic did was it got me to watch more shows. And you can really learn a lot from watching shows. And I think you should. I really think you should. In the past, I used to say, man, TV shows and movies, they're just a waste of time. I swear to God, that was my mentality. You know, the hustle, the work, and all that stuff. But you can really learn a lot from, and I think literally almost any show. I really do believe so. Whether you want to talk about Friends, whether you want to talk about, I'm not sure what else is exciting right now, what else is going on. I started watching Cobra Kai. That's also brilliant as well. But there really is a lesson in everything. And I think if you can begin to look at your TV show or movie from a different perspective, it can be really educational if you want it to be. You can learn a lot, my friends. There's so much knowledge. It's unbelievable. You can learn so much. It's right at your fingertips. It's just, you got to just change your perspective. And oh my God, the amount that you can learn is unbelievable. You won't even be able to wrap your head around the amount of knowledge that is literally in front of you. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Folks, let's spin the conversation in a completely different direction. One thing that I've noticed a lot. Okay, let me start with this concrete example. I was on TikTok and I see this girl. And she makes a video of herself lip syncing something, 7 to 10 seconds long. 600,000 likes. 600,000 likes for a 10-second video of herself lip syncing a song. My curiosity peaks, right? I don't judge people and say, hey man, why do you follow this crap? Right? You follow whatever you want to follow. You might look at me, watch MMA, and you say, these are barbarians, these are uncivilized, or whatever. Right? I don't judge what interests you, but I am curious. Hey man, what about this video interests you? What about this video captures the attention of over 600,000 people to like? So you have to imagine there's at least 1.5 million views. And look at the comments. And the number one most liked comment is a girl saying, I would kill myself to look like you. And I thought that was very interesting. It was the number one most liked comment on this video that was liked over 600,000 times, that had probably over 1 million, easily for sure, over 1 million views. And the top comment was, I would kill myself if that meant I could look like you. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the idea. And the girl in the video, she was an attractive girl. I mean, nothing to again, it's subjective, obviously. Attraction is subjective to a degree. There was nothing to that rattled off my attention immediately, but when I read that comment, and then I saw all the comments of that comment of people agreeing, I was like, yikes, man. I know it's just a joke, but even the joke of it is weird. Even joking like that is weird. But girls do that kind of, don't they? Like, they talk like that. They're like, oh my God, like, I would kill to look like you, or I'm making this up. I'm not sure if they actually talk like this, but I thought that was very interesting. The way you put someone on a pedestal because of how they look. You know what else is interesting? Let's say it was a complete joke, which it probably was. I would kill to look like you. You're not actually going to kill someone. But it's interesting that she didn't say, hey, I would really start seriously working out in order to look like you. Or I'm going to start looking into skincare to look like you. Or I'm going to pay attention more to the nutrition that I eat every day to look like you. None of those were mentioned. So Daniel, what the hell are you talking about? This is what I'm talking about. People look at people who are attractive. And this is partly due to these kind of photoshopped, stereotypical society-driven, hey, this is what a perfect man looks like, this is what a perfect woman looks like. The problem is, when you know that stuff isn't real, you're like, okay, I'm never going to try to be that because that's not real. Kylie Jenner, that's not your actual face. That's not what you looked like 15 years ago, right? And so I'm not even going to attempt to change myself to look like you. The problem is when you see someone who is legitimately attractive, who you believe, you don't know for sure, but you believe that they haven't gone through plastic surgery and that they've only done the natural things, right? Work out, eat well, no drinking, no doing drugs and all that good stuff. People still tend to go, man, what I would do to be as good looking as you. And they walk away. They don't look at, okay, brother, you're 6'4", I'm 5'8". I can't be as tall as you. Okay, forget it, forget height. You got a certain skin color that doesn't match mine. I can't have the skin color. Okay, whatever. What are you eating? I can eat what you're eating. What's your daily grocery list look like? What does your workout regimen look like? These are things that you can do. Hey man, what kind of skincare do you use? Moisturizer, is that your thing? Facial cleanser, all that stuff? Yeah? No? Anti-aging cream, any of that? Right? So you look at a person and when you find them attractive, or you look, man, how can I make myself attractive? I feel like a lot of people throw out the baby with the bathwater and they go, well, you're 6'2", you've got big breasts, big butt. Well, I can never be like you, so, whatever. I'll just be a little envious and maybe a little bit of hate towards you. When in reality, pardon me, I would think you'd go, okay, yo, you look good. I have no cap, no lie right here, folks. I was working at the pool. This was maybe 2 years ago now. And this guy walks in, super fit looking. He was maybe in his 30s, comes in, six-pack, chiseled. He's walking by me and said, hey man, you're in great shape, good job. He said, thank you. I said, whatever you're doing, keep it up, dude, you look great. And he appreciated and he saw the sincerity of my comment. We started talking back and forth and he was like, hey man, I just work out every day. I work out every day. I don't drink. I've never done drugs. I take care of my sleep. I do meditation. I take care of my skin. And it was very practical, it was very concrete. And I think that was one of the beauties of like, man, when you see someone who has something that you have or has something that you admire, there's two different ways you can go about it, right? You can be hateful towards them, or you can be interested, right? You can be like, wow, like that is a really interesting way to go about it. What can I learn from you? The first one is malicious, right? The first one is, what can I throw in your way? If I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm right about this. Double check this just in case if I'm mistaken. There's two types of envy. Number one is malicious. Number one is, hey, how can I throw a stick in your way so you fall and I can advance? That's one type of envy. A second type of envy is benign. Is going, hey, how can I learn from what you've done? Right? I've said this many times, but I've never said it in these words. I've always said, hey man, do you get jealous when you see someone succeeding, or do you get inspired? I like to say I get inspired. So when you see someone who looks good in your eyes, who looks attractive, think to yourself, hey, what can I do to make myself more attractive? And that is a legitimate question. And it's not saying more like them, but hey, I enjoy looking in the mirror and seeing myself. And if that answer for you right now, if you go in the mirror, and if you don't like what you see, what can you do to make yourself more attractive? And please focus on things that you can control. And I know you can't control plastic surgery, but let's just put that on the back burner, right? Let's forget about height. Let's forget about skin color. Weight. Are you a certain weight that you're not in love with? Whether it's too low or whether it's too high. What can you do to bring down your weight? Is it skin? right? Is it maybe we're talking acne? Maybe you don't take care of yourself. Maybe you eat certain foods that don't promote healthy skin. So maybe you can change your eating regimen, right? Maybe exercise. Maybe you're not as defined as you'd like to be. So when people say, hey man, how can I be more attractive? These are the first things that I go to, right? First of all, what do you find as attractive? Name me 3 people that are attractive and why. Let's say the first person I can know in mind is The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now you might first say, Dylan, he's ripped, he's big and strong. For guys especially, I want to be that ripped, big and strong. So okay, find out how often he goes to the gym, how long each session is. Look at his life and the way his life is scheduled. Look at your life, right? You're going to school, you got a part-time job. You can't afford to go work out twice a day, every day in the gym. But with respect to your schedule, what can you do that is a realistic, amount of time in the gym, whether that be twice or 3 times a week, man? Twice or 3 times a week is 1,000 times better than 0. Start small, and if you can, 3 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, go for it, be my guest. But start small. Also nutrition-wise, right? What does The Rock eat? He posts these photos of his cheat meals sometimes on Instagram. Man's eating like 5, 6 eggs, just crazy amount of food, right? Obviously, look at that big body, right? He needs all those calories. So think about, right, nutrition. Now we've got exercise and nutrition out of the way. Also, man, think about, and by the way, those do huge things for your skin as well. Like if you're exercising well, and if you're eating the right foods, if you're not always eating greasy foods, they'll do wonders for your skin. Also, drinking lots of water does wonders for your skin as well. So now we talked about skin, we talked about definitions of muscle mass, and we talked about nutrition would really be skin. It'd really just make you feel healthy. It'd make you feel better. It's good. The things that you eat, they could really be good for your hair. They could be good for your facial hair. So those are really appearance-based things that you can control, man. Exercise and nutrition. Then finally, I'd ask you to say, okay, well, what else about him? And I bet you would start naming off things that relate to his personality. Oh, he's charming. He's confident. He's extroverted. He knows how to rile up a room. Folks, that's not genetic. Being confident is not genetic. Being dependent is not genetic. Being a hard worker is not genetic. Anyone can do it with practice and over time. So if you work on yourself, if you start working out today, if you start focusing on your nutrition today, you're drinking lots of water, and you start looking at those personality traits that you think that other people find attractive. What are personality traits that you find attractive in a person, and what are personality traits that you believe that the opposite sex or whoever that you're interested in would be attracted to? Do you think that your crush would be attracted to someone who is shy, who doesn't like initiating conversation, who's afraid to take risks? If the answer is no, it's like, okay, these are things that you can change. You can. Right? In the literature right now, this is known as a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And unfortunately, what happens is a person goes, I'm not confident. Well, what that statement does is it tunnel visions you. Now you're not even going to look at how to become confident or how a person has gone from not being confident to being confident. But if you have a growth mindset, and I know this is oversimplification, but if you want more knowledge on this, go Google or even just YouTube, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Growth is more open-minded. It's this idea of, man, I'm not fixed. I can change. I can be molded. 5 years from now, I can be freaking unrecognizable. Right? It's very practical. It's if I start a little bit today, in 3 to 5 years, I'm unrecognizable. And that's really true, and I sincerely believe that. And I think if you want to be more attractive, that's 100% the way to do it. Exercise, nutrition, which includes water and all that good stuff, making sure you're sleeping well, and looking at those attractive personality traits. Oh, it's a turnoff to gossip? All right, I'm gonna make a note of that. Oh, it's attractive to be protective and to be assertive? All right, I'm gonna take a note of that. Now, I'm oversimplifying it because I'm just saying, workout and nutrition. It's like, dude, what does that mean? You can go more specific on those things, but on the general picture, you can become more attractive in your eyes and in society's eyes. Look at the things that you can control, and the things that you can't, don't worry about them. That is my 2 cents for today, folks. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you. As always, have an absolutely sensational rest of your day, and we will see each other next week. Take care.